Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah. So instead of jumping into a ton of different sources like we usually do,
right.
uh, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a single source.
Okay.
It's a book review
Interesting. A book review. Okay.
of Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I hasn't. No.
It's by Dr. Nicole Saphier,
I'm intrigued already.
and she's both a doctor and a mom of three.
Oh, wow.
So it seems like this book really digs into like the real stuff of motherhood.
Yeah.
Not just the heartwarming stuff, but also like the hard stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Combining those medical insights with personal stories.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
bet that makes for a really powerful read.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found really interesting about the book is how it's structured.
Okay.
So it's divided into these thematic sections like the journey to motherhood,
Okay.
sacrifice and resilience.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Each one explores like a different facet of what it means to be a mom.
Makes sense.
But it's not just one person's story.
Right.
Saphier brings in all these different voices.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like all kinds of women from all different backgrounds.
It's like an anthology.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I love about those types of books. It's
I-
not just one voice, right? It's a chorus of experiences,
Totally.
which I think can be so much more relatable
Absolutely.
and insightful, right?
And speaking of relatable,
Yeah.
the review talks about this theme of like the myth of perfect motherhood.
Oh, I like that.
And they actually share this anecdote about a CEO
Okay.
who from the outside seems to have it all,
Right.
but is secretly struggling.
Yeah. With the pressures of being a mom and all of that.
Exactly.
I mean, who hasn't felt that pressure at some point?
Right.
I know I have.
It's so real.
Yeah.
And you know what else I thought was really interesting? Saphier herself, she's really open about her own struggles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she talks about her experience with postpartum anxiety.
Wow.
And she even brings in like medical data.
Oh, interesting. So she's kind of like weaving in her medical knowledge with her personal experience
Exactly.
to explain it all.
Yes.
That's really cool.
And it's like she's saying, hey, this is real and it's okay to talk about it.
I love that. That vulnerability is so important.
It is.
Yeah.
And the review actually calls that chapter 1 of the most powerful in the book.
I can see why. It sounds like she's really tapping into something that a lot of women experience but might not feel comfortable talking about.
Totally.
Oh.
And that's something we see throughout the book, this idea of bringing hidden struggles to light.
Okay, yeah.
Like there's this whole section on the concept of invisible labor,
Invisible labor, yeah.
which apparently resonated with a lot of the mothers who read the book.
Yeah, I can see why that would resonate.
It's like that feeling of doing so much behind the scenes.
Right.
Without any recognition.
Or appreciation.
Exactly.
It's like society just expects mothers to be superheroes, you know?
Totally.
Juggling everything effortlessly.
And never complaining.
Yeah. And never showing any weakness. Right.
Like it's all just supposed to come naturally
Exactly.
and be easy.
Which, of course, it's not.
Not at all.
It's so much harder than anyone lets on.
And that's why I think this theme of invisible labor is so important to talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it's like finally acknowledging all that unseen work that mothers do.
Exactly. It's about time we start recognizing and valuing that labor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you ever read anything by Saphier before?
I haven't, no. But I am really liking what I'm hearing about her writing style.
Me too.
The way she's able to weave together these personal stories with medical insights, that's really impressive.
I know, right? And the review actually praises her writing style.
Oh, that's good.
They say it's super clear, engaging,
Mm-hmm.
and she avoids getting bogged down in all that medical jargon.
That's so important,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with a topic as personal and emotional as motherhood.
Totally. Like you want to be informed, but you don't want to feel like you're reading a textbook.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to connect with the stories on a human level.
And they actually quote this really vivid image from the book.
Oh, yeah.
It's from a chapter called The ICU Night Shift,
Okay.
where Saphier is talking about how she had to balance her hospital duties
Mm-hmm.
with like late night feedings.
Whoa, wow.
Talk about dedication.
I know, right? That image really paints a picture of the constant demands of motherhood,
Yeah.
especially for women who are also working demanding jobs.
A lot.
There's no off switch, is there?
It really makes you think about what it truly means to be a mother in today's world.
Absolutely. And how much pressure we put on women to do it all.
And you know what else is cool about the book?
What's that?
It's not just Saphier's voice.
Oh, right. You mentioned that it's an anthology,
Yeah.
so there are other writers as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the review mentions that the book features a whole variety of writing styles, too.
I like that.
So it's like some of the essays are more poetic,
Uh-huh.
and then others are more conversational.
That's so cool. It's like getting a glimpse into the diverse tapestry of motherhood through all these different lenses,
Exactly.
each one offering a unique perspective.
I love that. But it's not just about the personal stories either.
Okay.
The review mentions that the book also touches on some broader social commentary, which I thought was really interesting.
Interesting. What kind of social commentary?
So it delves into things like parental leave policies,
Oh, okay, yeah.
healthcare disparities,
Mm-hmm.
and just like the general undervaluing of caregiving.
I see. So it's not just celebrating motherhood, but also kind of shining a light on the systemic challenges that a lot of mothers face.
Right, exactly.
That's really important.
It is, and it's making me think that this book is not just a love letter to motherhood,
Hmm.
but also like a call to action.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
A call to action.
Okay. Because the review mentions that while the book raises these important issues, it doesn't necessarily offer any concrete solutions.
Hmm.
Like it focuses more on individual resilience,
Okay.
which is inspiring, but it might leave some readers wanting more, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. It's like, on the one hand, it's great to celebrate individual strength and resilience. But on the other hand, I wonder if it kind of lets society off the hook a little bit.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, shouldn't we be pushing for systemic changes that actually make things easier for mothers
Totally.
instead of just expecting them to be superheroes all the time?
Yes. It's a really important point.
I think that's something worth thinking about.
Definitely. Now let's talk about the personal stories in the book.
Okay. That's what I'm most curious about.
So the review says that there's this whole range of experiences
Uh-huh.
from heartbreaking to heartwarming. Like there's something for everyone.
That's good.
And they also highlight the fact that the book includes stories from LGBTQ plus parents and non-traditional families.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great for representation.
It is. It's so important to see those diverse experiences reflected in stories about motherhood.
Totally. And it reinforces this idea that there's no one right way to be a mom.
Exactly. Every family's journey is unique and valuable.
Exactly. And then, adding another layer of depth to the book,
Uh-huh.
Saphier shares her own struggles.
Oh, wow. What kind of struggles?
Well, the review mentions her experience balancing her career with her son's autism diagnosis.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
It is. And it makes her seem even more relatable, right?
Definitely. It shows that even successful women face real challenges.
It normalizes those challenges.
Yeah.
And it helps to create a sense of community and support.
I love that.
So, given everything we've talked about, how do you think this book stacks up against other popular books on motherhood?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think.
I know there are a lot out there.
There are so many. Like The Motherhood comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
And Operating Instructions. Have you read that one?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, that one's a classic too.
Right.
But I think what sets Saphier's book apart
Yeah.
is that medical lens that she brings.
Oh, totally. Like she's able to provide this extra layer of insight that you wouldn't necessarily get from a book solely focused on personal anecdotes.
Right, exactly. It's not just about the emotional journey of motherhood, but also about understanding the physical and psychological realities that women experience.
Yes. And before we move on, I have to mention this. The review describes the book as this beautiful hardcover edition
Oh, nice.
with muted floral end papers and a ribbon bookmark.
Oh, I love that.
I can practically smell the old bookstore.
Me too, me too.
As you describe those floral end papers, it sounds like the kind of book you'd want to curl up with on a rainy day.
It does, doesn't it? A cup of tea, a cozy blanket, and a good book. Perfect.
But it's important to remember that no book is perfect.
Yeah.
And the review does point out some limitations, which I think are worth discussing.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it. What did they say?
Well, for starters, they mention that the pacing is a bit uneven at times.
Okay.
Like some stories kind of lean heavily on that triumph over adversity
Yeah.
narrative
Right.
without really fully exploring the complexities of those struggles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. It's like they gloss over the hard parts a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they also point out a lack of representation from certain groups, like disabled mothers and low-income families.
Oh, that's a good point. It seems like the book, while striving for diversity, might not fully capture the breadth of the motherhood experience.
That's a really good point. Like you said earlier, having a chorus of voices is so important in these types of anthologies, and it sounds like there might be some voices missing from this particular chorus.
Right. And lastly, they noted that Saphier's medical insights, while interesting, sometimes interrupt the flow of the stories. It's like she's trying to balance being a storyteller and a physician, and sometimes those roles clash a bit. It's interesting that you say that because, on the one hand, I love that she's bringing her medical expertise to the table, giving us that extra layer of insight, but I can also see how it could feel a little jarring if those medical explanations aren't woven in organically.
I agree. It's a tough balance to strike, but overall, despite those limitations, the review still gives a very positive impression of the book.
That makes sense. So, for our listeners out there who are thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, but is it right for me? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, who do you think would really enjoy this book?
Well, I think if you're at all curious about the multifaceted nature of motherhood, the joys, the challenges, the diverse experiences of mothers from all walks of life, then Love, Mom seems like it would be a really worthwhile read.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to motherhood, showing us all its messy beauty, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. It's about embracing the full spectrum of what it means to be a mom, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
You know, it's making me think back to those themes we talked about earlier. The myth of perfect motherhood, the invisible labor, the systemic challenges that so many mothers face. It's inspiring to read about individual resilience, but it also makes me wonder, what can we do to create a more supportive environment for all moms? What can WE do as a society to ease that burden?
That's such an important question. It's easy to get caught up in these individual stories of strength and resilience, but it's also crucial to step back and examine the systems that are putting so much pressure on mothers in the first place. What can we change? What needs to shift? I think those are the conversations we need to be having.
It's a call to action, isn't it? To
Yeah.
not just read about these issues, but to actually do something about them,
Yeah.
to advocate for change, to support the mothers in our lives, to create a world where motherhood is truly valued and celebrated.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about stories like these. They have the ability to not only inspire us, but to also ignite a sense of collective responsibility. We're all in this together, and we all have a role to play in creating a more supportive world for mothers.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Love Mom, it seems like the big takeaway here is that motherhood is a powerful, complex, and ultimately universal experience.
And this book, with its blend of personal stories, medical insights, and social commentary, offers a really thought-provoking glimpse into that experience.
It's a celebration of the highs and lows, the triumphs and setbacks, the messy beauty of it all.
And while it may not offer all the answers or represent every single perspective, it definitely sparks a conversation and encourages us to think more deeply about the world around us, and specifically how we can better support mothers.
So to our listener, if you're looking for a book that will make you laugh, cry, think, and maybe even inspire you to take action, Love Mom seems worth checking out.
And as you read those stories, we encourage you to reflect on your own experiences and the experiences of the mothers in your life. What challenges have they faced? What triumphs have they celebrated? And most importantly, how can we work together to create a world where motherhood is truly valued and supported?
That's a powerful thought to leave us with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another insightful exploration. You know what's really stuck with me from this review?
What's that?
It's that idea of the book not offering, like, concrete solutions to the challenges of motherhood,
Yeah,
but instead focusing more on, like, individual resilience.
right.
I don't know, it makes me wonder if that's kind of like a reflection of our society's tendency to put all the burden on moms.
Oh, interesting. Like we're saying, you're amazing for handling all of this, but you're on your own when it comes to like actually making it work.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't seem quite right.
No, it doesn't.
It's like we praise their strength and resilience, but then we don't provide the actual support systems they need.
Exactly. To actually thrive, not just survive.
Right, right.
So it brings us back to that question of, like,
Mm.
what can WE do to make things better for mothers?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? What
Yeah.
needs to change on a societal level to really ease that burden?
Yeah. And I think it's a question we all need to be thinking about,
Definitely.
whether we're mothers ourselves or partners or friends or just,
Yeah.
members of the society that benefits from the labor of mothers.
Absolutely. It's a collective responsibility. And I think this book, Love, Mom, even though it doesn't give us like a step-by-step plan,
Right.
it at least starts that conversation
Yes.
and encourages us to think critically about how we can all contribute to creating a more supportive world for moms.
So to our listener, If you're looking for a book that will challenge you
Yeah.
and open your eyes to new perspectives,
Yeah.
and maybe even inspire you to become a more vocal advocate for mothers,
Yeah.
then Love Mom seems like a really great place to start.
And as you're reading those stories, think about the mothers in your own life. Your mom, your partner, your friends, your colleagues. How can you show up for them in a more meaningful way?
Such a good point. Because even small acts of support and understanding can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Love Mom.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new
Yeah,
and maybe even feel a little bit more empowered to make a difference.
absolutely.
We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.